Hi, welcome to another episode of Firm Foundations Podcast with your hosts CJ and Tony. Last week we looked at chapter 24 of Genesis. It was a sweet, um, classic chick flick love story with a Middle Eastern twist. And Isaac marries Rebecca, and they have a beautiful love at first sight kind of situation going on. And we saw how that was the whole event was a reflection of not only Rebecca's faith and family situation to get up and leave everything and travel to a land she's never laid eyes on before and marry a man she's never even seen before. But also we saw how Eliezer, Abraham's trusted servant, himself is a man of faith, and how God honors his faith and answers his prayer as he embarks on serving his master. But we really saw how he was not only a man of faith, but he was a faithful man. He was faithful in conducting his master's business, and it's just a beautiful chapter. After all the stuff we've gone through in Genesis so far, it was just a breath of fresh air. Today, we're going to look at Genesis chapter 25. And in this chapter, there's a lot going on. A little bit here, a little bit there. But it's Abraham remarries. Abraham has a whole mess of a whole lot of kids, is what I'm trying to say. And then he passes away. And then we get the first look into the next generation after Isaac. And it's interesting that we don't really hear a whole lot about Isaac. And we go straight into the story of his children. So,
a lot of genealogy going on here.
A lot of genealogy going on. A lot of, and if you think these names are boring and whatnot, I would challenge you to look at it with critical eyes again, because these names are put here for a reason. Some of these we figured out. Some of these names we have not. Some of it's lost to time. Some of it is maybe shielded from us for a while, and we'll find out in the future. Who knows? But I can promise you that there's going to be several important names in these, and they're going to change how we look at history as it unfolds till this very day. We're going to get a better grasp at what's going on in the Middle East and what's going on in Europe with all the immigrants from the Middle East, and what some in our government are trying to do by bringing immigrants from the Middle East here. And we're going to get a better understanding of the psychological software, the spiritual software that's operating in the background. So it's going to be worth it. It's going to be interesting. We'll make it a little interesting if you care about these things in general. So without a further ado,
we'll get started here. Abraham again took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bore him Zimram, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan begot Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Ashurim, Letushim, and Lumim. And the sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanak, Abadah, and Aladah. All these were the children of Keturah. And Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac. But Abraham gave gifts to the sons of the concubines which Abraham had, and while he was still living, he sent them eastward, away from Isaac his son, to the country of the east. So you know, I really don't think that people pay attention to Abraham's second wife and descendants, because all you hear is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah.
That's repeated so much that you just forget that he's had other children here.
Yeah.
And like you had said earlier, there's a lot of names here that we're going to find in future here, who they are, and I think you're going to explain some of that, some of the names here of who they are and what they mean in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to the individual names between verses 12 and 18
Okay.
when it's actually going to go through the genealogies again. But right now, I'd like to focus on Keturah herself, because who is this woman? There's debate on who she is, and because it's an oddity, like you said, nobody ever pays attention to her, just like nobody ever. We only hear about Hagar and Ishmael as a roadblock to God's promise and what's, the drama there, and then of course the Ishmaelites, the Arabs that came as his descendants, and we hear about it in terms of the Middle East conflict a lot, and that's about it. But early Jewish commentators and the sages of Israel had interesting outlook on this. Now, not all of them agree. In fact, most of them actually don't, I think. But
Well, a lot of this is theory and speculation.
yeah,
Correct?
it's theory and speculation comes from actually the next chunk that we're going to read, verses 7 through 11. But spoiler alert, Ishmael is going to show up at his father Abraham's funeral alongside Isaac. Now, call me crazy, but if I was put out, if I was told to disappear, I wouldn't show up to a funeral, the funeral of the person who kicked me out of the house, right? So how did that come about? That's where the first kernel of this thought dropped into their heads, and they started debating. Another thing is, we know that Ishmael dwelled in the wilderness of Paran, and Isaac pitched his tent, we found out in last chapter, in Beer Lahai Roi. And what's significant about that is, in the context of what we're looking at today, is that Abraham's up here in Canaanite territory, in
Beersheba.
in Beersheba, yes. Well, actually, that would actually be Philistine territory, because it's near Gerar. But he's north. The wilderness of Paran is southeast of that, a ways down there. And Be'er Lahairoi is kind of in the middle. It's at the southern edge of the Negev desert. The boundary, it's almost on the boundary between the Negev and the wilderness of Paran. Why does he go there? Does that have anything to do with Ishmael and Isaac singing Kumbaya, my lord, at Abraham's funeral? And the idea is that maybe Isaac went down there and conducted a family reconciliation mission. How does that have anything to do with Keturah? Well, Keturah's name is related to two other words in Hebrew. One is Keshura and one is Ketoret. Keshura means closed, and it's in the sense of purity and chastity, in the sense that when trying not to give up. I'm trying to build, but it's hard. So let me just come out and say, where Isaac is living, Be'er Lahairoi, we saw that that place is associated with a certain concubine wife of Abraham's, Ishmael's mother, Hagar. And the idea is that when Hagar was sent away, she didn't remarry. She didn't have any carnal relations with anyone. So she remained chaste. She remained Keshura. And because of that, along with her repentance sometime over the years, that she became like incense, beautiful smelling incense to the Lord. And that's the word Ketoret. And both of these words are related to Keturah. And the idea is that, Isaac went down, made peace with Hagar and Ishmael, and he brought Hagar up, whose name God had changed to Keturah over these years, and brought her back to marry Abraham and be a proper wife. And that's a beautiful, beautiful argument. If you want to listen to it articulated well, way better than I could ever, you can look up Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson's video on YouTube titled The Abraham Accords, A Biblical Perspective, in that he talks about this and he traces the source material through the Bereshit Rabbah and Rashi's arguments, and it's fascinating. The problem is that not every sage actually agrees with this, and I've found one kind of weak link in the argument myself in verse 6, where it says, "But Abraham gave gifts to the sons of the concubines," plural concubines. Well, who were Abraham's plural concubines? We only know two, Keturah now and Hagar in the past. So the fact that the Bible in Hebrew, not just in English, identifies plural concubines seems to prove the fact that Keturah and Hagar are not the same people. I love the story. I love the explanation because it has a lot of explanatory power, and it's nice. It sounds nice. It brings closure to a painful story with Hagar and Ishmael. But I think we can still get there to the happy conclusion without the remarriage of Abraham and Hagar, with Keturah being a separate woman by just looking at, hey, Isaac did indeed go down south to the edge of the two wildernesses, and then we see Ishmael at Abraham's funeral. And in this verse 6, we see that Abraham gave gifts to the sons of both concubines. That would include Ishmael. So I still see that Isaac went down and made peace with Ishmael, and became a mediator between Ishmael and his father, and made peace there, and kind of helped Ishmael receive some of the family wealth through these gifts, and that's beautiful. I don't need any extra intricacies to put a bow on it, because life is messy. We know life is messy. People are not perfect, and sometimes some things just don't work out. One of my favorite country songs is I can't remember who sings it. Shame on me, but it goes, some things you can't go back to because you let them slip away. And I think um, Hagar and Abraham, their story is one of those things where Hagar just let it slip away by causing trouble, and she was sent away. And time passes, and we don't see her ever again. So perhaps she passes away sometime before Abraham does, and it's just not attested to. It's just one of those things. What could have been,
You know,
right?
and I just thought about this, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But, um, you know, how old was Hagar
Yeah.
when Sarah gave her to Abraham? Okay,
Yeah.
and then she had Ishmael. He was 16 years old when Sarah finally had Isaac.
13.
13?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, so Hagar is as old approximately as Sarah was, which means she would be over 100 years old having these other kids. I don't think so.
I mean,
You know, and it's like, we talk about Ishmael uh, and Isaac. I agree that Isaac was probably in communication with Ishmael in a sense because that was his half brother. Uh, and yeah, Ishmael probably was ticked off because he got kicked out, you know. But I think Isaac was the peacemaker to bring him together back to his father. Maybe Hagar was there. I think that's kind of irrelevant for the rest of this.
yeah.
I think that uh, Abraham most likely had a younger concubine besides Hagar because she would have been, like I said, in her hundreds, or 110 probably. To have all these other kids and basically one a year, and there's how many?
Oh
I,
Lord.
I forgot. It was like
Zenan,
9.
Yokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, Shua. 6. 6, but then Yokshan, then it talks about the sons.
Okay.
So, yeah. So 6 sons plus grandchildren.
Okay. Highly unlikely, in my opinion, that because it doesn't mention Hagar anymore,
Yeah.
which she could have passed away years before. We don't know. It doesn't say. It's all speculation. Even what I'm saying is speculation that I would think that he had younger concubines in order to.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible doesn't talk about any other concubine either. So I'm even hesitant to say that. I'm thinking Keturah was probably a lot younger.
Mhm.
So, because that let's face it, for an older guy, especially in those days, for him to remarry, the idea is also that there's someone there to take care of him in his old age. So it's going to be a younger person, like you said. So yeah, I mean, she fits the bill of a younger concubine that can deliver all these kids. I mean, on the other hand, though, to be God's advocate here,
Mm-hmm.
the God that put a baby in a 90-year-old woman can also put it in a 110-year-old woman. But
Well,
did he do that? That's a question.
Isaac was 40, correct?
Yeah,
When all this
yeah.
when he married Rebecca. Okay, so that would have made and Sarah died at 120
37.
137
Oh, 127.
127. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would mean that Hagar would have most likely been the same age, give or take.
I mean, I think Hagar was actually a younger woman when she was given to
Abraham.
Abraham and Sarah.
Mhm.
So I think she probably would have been. I don't know. I didn't do the math, but in
Yeah.
my mind, when I see her, when she was given to Sarah, Sarah was in her 60s. That would have. I mean, and I'm thinking she might have been 15 to 20 when she was given to them.
Mhm.
So she would now be definitely approaching 100 if she was still alive. That's another reason why I think it's possible, but not. It's possible, but not plausible.
Right.
But
It's
and this explains just this explains the why. Okay, so why did Abraham give gifts to them and send them away again in this chapter in verse 6? It 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 seems to me, well, it explains the several things. It explains later on why Ishmael shows up at his father's what we previously thought was his estranged father's funeral. Turns out they're not so estranged anymore. But it also explains why we see these names, the descendants of both concubines, kind of intertwined in history, as far south as in Yemen, in ancient stone inscriptions. We see these tribal names etched side by side as the ancestors of the Arabs. And the Arabs themselves divide all the Arabs into three categories: the Ariba, those who are the OG Arabs; the Mustariba, which are the people that weren't Arabs, that were Arabized through assimilation; and then I forgot the Arabic term for the third group, but it's pretty much the extinct tribes, Arabic tribes that existed at one point and then disappear from record because of whatever reason. And let me tell you, when we get to verses 12 through 18, we're gonna focus on three of Ishmael's descendants, kind of zoom in on them, and really one of them is going to stand out because his legacy continues to haunt us all over the world till this day. But then, you know, we'll look at the sons of Keturah and their descendants and go from there.
What a is there a purpose of sending them eastward?
Oh,
Was that to separate that clan from Isaac so that there's no intermixing? Or
yeah. So there's a few things. Well, you couldn't send them west because there's the sea, and you couldn't send them southwest because there's Egypt. Like Egypt's already taken. So if they're gonna make a name for themselves, if they're gonna build their own tribes and nations, they have to go east. Again, though, spiritually speaking, going back to the first chapters of Genesis, what do we see when we go east? It's always out from the presence of the Lord, always cast away, always into sin, always into spiritual nomad's land.
right? Because
So-
God said, or like you were saying, He sent Adam and Eve eastward of the garden.
Yeah. And then Cain, when he murdered his brother, went eastward. and when the what I assume is the Sumerians traveled from the east back, the first thing that they did was build a city and a tower. And that again coming from the east back to God, or trying to attempt to come back to God, and they do it in their own way though, and that's the problem. So there's that also kind of a spiritual nomad's land, the east being that, but it's also, and we see again, we see the reverberations of that till this day. But in Abraham's mind, it's like, okay, I can't send them southwest because Egypt. They're not gonna flourish there. They're not gonna be their own people there. They're gonna get assimilated, absorbed into Egypt, and he doesn't want that. And you know, he's learned his lesson, thank goodness. But he sends them away. And why is that? Because if now he has 8 sons, Isaac's not the oldest. He's the second oldest. So if Ishmael wanted to go back and cause trouble, he could assert that he's the rightful heir, everything should be his. And we can't have that because God's promises to Isaac. So we got to do something about that. And the other concubine's children, Keturah's sons, might have said, yeah, we are hanging with Ishmael because you're the second son, and that's not how this works. And so Abraham's looking at it and saying, you know, Isaac, you have a beautiful heart. You're a man of reconciliation. You're a peacemaker. Blessed are those who make peace, right? But the goodness of your own heart can cause a lot of problems. So I'm going to take measures to prevent that. So you don't have to deal with that. But this time he does what's right, and he gives everyone a share. He gives everyone a piece and sends them on their way, so that, hey, there's still peace. There's still the other kids, the other 6 will say, well, okay, I mean, this is what we were going to get anyways. So, you know, it's all good. And Ishmael goes, well, at least I'm not thrown away like an afterthought. He's, you know, we can separate on good terms. And
well, with the amount of material wealth that Abraham had, probably had plenty to go around
Yeah.
with Isaac still getting a large abundance
Yeah.
of that.
And that's the funny thing. You know, the the general thought is that the portion, the blessings that go to the first son, to the eldest son, is usually two times the portion. So if you have two kids, you divide it into three. The elder son gets two pieces, the younger son gets one piece. Here, it would have been divided into 9 pieces. Isaac would have gotten two, the others would have gotten one each. But that's not what he does, at least from what we can tell. But still, the idea is Abraham is making sure that he has a clear successor and there's no infighting.
Everybody's taken care of.
And everybody's taken care of. Yeah.
All right, let's move on here with verse 7. This is the sum of the years of Abraham's life, which he lived, 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, an old man full of years, and was gathered to his people. And his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth. There Abraham was buried, and Sarah his wife. And it came to pass, after the death of Abraham, that God blessed his son Isaac, and Isaac dwelt at Beer-lahai-roi. Kind of odd. You might be able to answer this. He was when Abraham died. He was gathered to his people. Now, the only person that he's gathered to is Sarah, because she's the only one in that cave at this time, as far as we know. So if he's the beginning of the people. he is the beginning of what God started, Abraham, and the rest of it is his seed. So how is he gathered to his people if he is the beginning of the people, of his people?
Because it's not talking about the people that's coming, it's about the people that have gone before him.
Yeah,
His father, his brothers,
but they're back west.
and it's not a earthly geographical temporal positioning. It's talking about the afterlife.
Okay.
And we got to understand that, like, today we think in terms of heaven and hell. We have never heard the word heaven or hell in the Bible up till now. I mean, and we still haven't heard the word.
Right.
As far as people knew, as far as people were considered, as far as the Lord's considered, there's no heaven or hell here. Like, in the sense that when people die, they don't go straight to hell. They don't go straight to heaven. They go to this cosmic waiting room. You know, the land of the dead, Sheol, or
We'll
Hades.
find out later on that there's two places that they're held. The good guys are held in a place called Sheol, right? The bad guys are in a place called Hades. When we get further on,
yeah,
and they can see each other across the chasm, because that's explained when Jesus talks about
yeah,
Lazarus and the rich man. And I know it doesn't talk about it right now, but this is where Abraham and Sarah and all the good people they don't go to heaven. They're being held in this one spot.
yeah, and that's why the Bible talks about after Jesus was crucified, before he was resurrected, went and
down
preached
there.
to
The captives.
the captives. Some think that means he went to hell and preached. That's not what it says. In fact, the New Testament in Revelation, we find out that hell wasn't even created for humans originally.
Right.
It was
That's
created
for the
strictly
fallen
for
angels.
the fallen angels, whom are not yet. Well, some of them are.
Yeah.
Some of them are, but not well. Not all of them are locked up. But humans aren't said to go there at all yet. So, yeah. Where did Jesus go? Where did he preach the gospel? He went to Sheol, the land of the dead. It's a neutral spot. There's no judgment associated with there, good or bad. But he's going there and saying, hey, the promises the Lord had made have come to fruition in me. I am come to destroy death and its chains. I am setting you free.
Mm-hmm.
Good news. Everything you hoped for, Abraham. Good news, Noah. Everything that the Lord promised you is now. And so that's where Abraham has gone to, his people. And the idea is that Nahor and Terah and Haran and their granddaddies are all there. So he's gathered to his people.
Okay. But you still have, from what I understand, because when I was talking about Lazarus and the rich man is being tortured in hell. He's not in the same place as Noah and Abraham and all those Moses and all those guys. He's in a separate place that they can see across this chasm.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's based on how much we want to read into a parable, right?
mm-hmm.
If we limit the parable to the main point of it, then it doesn't really say a whole lot. Like, parables are not meant to be perfect examples of reality. The main point of it is the reality. Everything else is just embellishments to drive the point across. So, does Jesus actually mean that there's two separate places? We can't really infer that strictly just from the parable. There very well maybe. I mean, I'm not against the idea, but at least until now, we don't have any, and that's where I'm going with that. Like, there's no hint of a second place yet, right?
Okay.
Like, heaven is where God dwells with the angelic beings, and then there's the land of the dead. Those are the only two places that, and of course there's earth. Those are the only three places that we know of so far. Hell is unheard of at this point. So, I mean, I'm comfortable leaving it just as that. But,
Okay.
I mean, but like you said, there could be a point in the parable where that is actually part of what Christ is trying to actually say. That might be part of the main point. I don't necessarily see it, but it could be. So, what are we saying? If hell was specifically made for the fallen angels, and humans aren't supposed to go there until final judgment, what is the rich man doing there in the parable?
We'll have to We'll have to get back with that sometime.
See, that's why I have a hesitation of taking that as part of the core message of the parable.
Okay.
But yeah, it. But yeah, that's his
Another
people.
speculation.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's his people. As far as today's text is concerned, his people means all the ancestors that have died till that point. All the
I can, well, I can understand that. I guess I'm thinking of his people as far as bringing his body and burying it in the same place, which we know it's
Oh
not.
no,
It's just him and Sarah right now, as far as
Yeah.
we know.
yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to cover on this?
No, just pointing out Be'er Lahai Roi, Isaac's in Be'er Lahai Roi, and
Mhm.
that has explanatory power for what's going to happen next, and kind of bridges the gap between first 6 verses and the next 6 verses. And it's interesting that if you notice that, and of course this doesn't have anything the enumeration of chapters and verses, like we've spoken of before, are not divine. They were done by monks in the Middle Ages to make it easier to find different portions of scripture. But I find it interesting that it's all the first 3 sections, I should say, at least in this chapter, are all 6 verses long. I have nothing to say about that. I have no insights on it. I just find it interesting. I'm a nerd.
Okay. Verse 12. Now this is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's maidservant, bore to Abraham. And these were the names of the sons of Ishmael by their names, according to their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebajoth, then Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadar, Tema, Yetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these were their names by their towns and their settlements, 12 princes according to their nations. These were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died, was gathered to his people. They dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go toward Assyria. He died in the presence of all his brethren.
Yeah.
Brethren as in kinfolk, not brethren because he didn't have, well, no, his brethren, his half-brethren, because Isaac was his half-brother, and then Keturah had sons by Abraham, which would be half-brothers to Ishmael.
Yeah, all of it. Yep, yep. He died in the midst of a meeting. Well, first of all,
Because they were all sent to the east.
yeah. If so, this kind of hints that several things going on, right? So yes, basic to your question, yes.
Before you start this, let's give them a rundown of who we are and why we're here.
All right. Hey. So, again, as we do every week, we're here to serve you, to live the faith life with you, to study the Word together, and grow in the Lord together. A little more in depth, I guess. We don't do this every week, but we both worship the Lord in the same house of worship here in northern Alabama. Tony is actually one of our, would you say, elders? One of the leaders in the church, and I'm just blessed to be amongst the number of the church. We've both served the Lord in different places at different fulfilling different roles. We've both been pastors before. I've been a worship leader before, worship team member before, overseas, and we're just bringing what the Lord has given us to the table and inviting you to join us and bring what the Lord has given you, and let's have a big old potluck together. That's the point of these videos. And if you do not know the Lord, if you've never heard of Jesus, if I don't know, there are people that are like that, or if you you know about, you think you know about the Bible, you think you know something about the stories, but you don't have a whole lot of detail, but you would like to learn more, or if you're feeling a desire to get to know what this is all about, if there is someone out there that cares about you and loves you and wants to bless you, wants to hold you, and maybe put together the broken pieces of life. Um, Whatever, basically, what I'm saying is, uh, wherever you are in your walk in this life right now, if you are interested in God and the things of God and want to know Him or want to know Him better, um, you are our target demographic. Um, we want to help you in your daily life, um, as much as the Lord has given us, as much grace as He's given us. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing, if it's provoking thoughts, questions, concerns, we would like to hear from you. If you have something to teach us, please put it in the comments. If you have questions you want us to answer, please put it in the comments. If you have concerns, maybe something we said was out of pocket in your mind or whatever, put it in the comments. Um, let's have a discussion. Let's learn from one another and let's teach one another and let's live this life in the Messiah together. Furthermore, if you would like to partner with us, we're not asking for money. We're not asking for anything other than you like and subscribe and share this video or any of our videos that you watch so that more people can see, because YouTube looks at engagement. They look at certain metrics and they say, oh, this video, this channel is getting a lot of interaction. They're gaining a lot of interest. There's probably a lot more people that would like to see this. So they start promoting the video on their own. The algorithm that so many people love to complain about. But that's how you can partner with us in getting biblical knowledge out to the world, the gospel out to the world, so that somebody in India who's never heard of Jesus, or somebody in California who's never heard of Jesus, at least in a favorable light, can, and they can find out. Yeah. Furthermore, there's one more thing that we want to do going forward. We've been putting this out there for the last few weeks, but it was your idea, so would you like to share?
Sure. So we'd like to hear from you, and we would like to receive, if you're willing to send us T-shirts of your church, so you could have free advertising. T-shirts, large, double X. or a hat from your church, send us just a brief message of who your church is, what they believe in. It must be Bible believing churches, because we will not promote other religions, so to speak.
Yeah.
But we want to do this as a favor for y'all watching us. We'd like to give you this free advertisement. Put if you're allowed to put your names down, where you're located, if whatever information you want to put out for anyone to know who you are, we'll be more than glad to do that for you at no charge. I guess the only cost would be the cost of the T-shirts or the hats, and sending them to us. Our address is Firm Foundations, PO Box 121, Cullman, Alabama 35056, and that'll be right down here in this little area.
Right about here.
Right about there.
Post production.
And hey, we'd be more than blessed to bless you in this aspect of advertisement.
Yeah. Because everybody that hears the gospel, everybody that starts with a fresh fire for the Lord, studying the Bible, and maybe they haven't darkened the doors of a church or a Messianic synagogue in a long time, they need somewhere to go. Maybe they just moved to a new city, and they need to figure out where they're going to go, where they're going to make community. So, help us, help you, help them find you. Yeah. All right. So,
Continue. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, that's great.
we were about halfway through this episode, maybe a little bit more. But so we're talking about the genealogy of Ishmael.
Yeah.
Children.
So yeah, they're in northern Arabia, which today is Jordan and Syria. That also kind of tells us where the again, that's a scribal. The last verse you read, they dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go towards Assyria. That part there in verse 18 is a scribal gloss, a little, what we would consider we would today put that as a footnote, but the scribe that was studying the word of God that day made a note kind of in text, to let people know, hey, it's been several generations since these words were written, and not everybody knows the region we're talking about, so here it is, kind of deal. But and again, that beautifully helps us date when the Bible was, or at least when the latest that the text of the Genesis specifically could have been written. And lo and behold, it's not what mainstream secular Bible scholars think it is. But we've actually talked about that a few episodes ago. This is episode 30. It's going to come out sometime late September, early October. Right now we're in August recording this, but you can go back a few chapters and a few episodes, maybe 3 episodes ago we talked about it. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But if you want to get a deeper discussion of how we can date possibly when this was inserted here for our benefit, and how that pertains to the dating of the Bible, specifically the book of Genesis. But like you said, he died in the presence of all his brethren. Is It's talking about all his kin and his half brothers. Um, the verse 17. These were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people. Now the sages of Israel have taken this kind of formulaic wording to mean something. Basically, we see that usually, in fact, as far as I know, in every circumstance in the Bible where we see that it's used in relation to a righteous person that died. So it's hinting at Ishmael was a righteous man at this point. He wasn't always that way. He was a troublemaker. He was a hater of his brother. He was not the best of men. Um, and his and it, the Bible hints at it being more than just your typical sibling rivalry, but now it's hinting at the fact that he's repented, he's made shuvah, he's turned around, and he's living with his brethren in peace, or was living with his brethren in peace, that he had made amends, and he died in their midst, meaning he wasn't cast away anymore. He wasn't left out in the cold anymore. He was brought back into the family, and he was surrounded by love and respect, and yeah, it's beautiful. To answer your question, I guess that is. But going back to the 12 tribes that would descend from Ishmael, the Arabs themselves say that Ishmael actually married a Yemenite woman from the tribe of Qahtan. And, the Bible says that he married a woman from Egypt, so maybe he had multiple wives. Maybe one wife died and then he remarried, like his father did. We don't know. But what we do know is that as far as the Arabs are concerned, they're all Ishmaelite by way of marriage, meaning Ishmael married into the Qahtan tribe in Yemen, and then, his descendants married more of them, and they just became one people. And that's kind of what they mean when they divide the existing Arab world into two categories: those who were originally Arab and those who were assimilated into the Arab culture. But his descendants are going to be three of the most important Arab tribes. Nebayot would be the ancestor of the Nabateans, and y'all can go and look up the Nabateans and read about them on your own time. Yetur becomes the ancestor of the Idureans, and again, you can look them up in history. But Kedar is by far the most important Arab tribe, as far as I'm concerned, because their impact lasts till this very day, in the sense of, Kedar has a son, Fir, and then he has a son, Quraysh. And if you know anything about Islam, around the end of the 6th, beginning middle of the 7th century, I can't remember off the top of my head, a mad prophet arises out of Petra, contrary to popular belief, in Jordan, and he preaches a different gospel, and he leads millions astray. Today there's almost 2 billion that are led astray by his heresy. Of course, I'm talking about the famous mad prophet from the Quraysh tribe, Muhammad himself. So he's a northern Arab tribesman. It's interesting because they think he's from Mecca and Medina. That's Hijaz is the area that he grew up in, is the modern belief amongst Arabs, amongst Muslims. But interestingly enough, the description that the Quran gives and the Hadith give regarding his birthplace, the place he grew up, doesn't match anywhere in the Arabian Peninsula except for Petra itself. And when we look at the first, some of the oldest mosques that are still used today, from North Africa all the way to China, new scholarship actually has made some findings that are interesting. The first few, until the schism, actually faces Petra. And, during the schism, some faced Jerusalem, some continued to face towards Petra, some started facing the Hijaz area, where Mecca and Medina are. But it's interesting that they're facing Petra. And that's because that's where not only Muhammad was born and raised, but that's where the black rock that's today in Mecca actually came from Petra. So that's where it came from. And just little tidbits, right? Trying to make these genealogies interesting. Why do we care? Because, Islam is causing trouble all around the world. Wherever it goes, it brings nothing but bloodshed, pain, suffering, despair, blatant human rights violations, the dehumanization of women, and slavery, even till this day. It's, today's world. All the trouble that Britain and France and Germany especially are facing comes from this religion and all the problems that it brings with it. And
I seen something on Facebook today talking about Islam, and they all hate the people in these other countries hate the Islamic regime over them, and then they move somewhere else, and then they try to bring that all back.
yeah,
They're unhappy over there where they're at, so they come to a place that's is good, and you can be a normal human being, and then but they want to destroy it and make it just like the place they just left that they hated.
yeah,
It's very odd to me, and England has really been taken over.
yeah,
And you see stuff in the news constantly about what they're doing. They just had a riot of some type going on there, where they had their knives and such, and the police never did anything about it.
yeah.
Uh,
Right now,
I was gonna say, thank God that we're allowed to have our guns and such, or we would be end up being just as bad as England in the shape that they're in. But
Yeah, I mean, look, we already have inklings of the beginning of that in Dearborn, Michigan, where more than 60% of the population is now Islamic, and they're enforcing Sharia
Sharia
law
law.
on the people on the streets of America. We got to deal with that. And now there's two different housing developments. One in Dallas, Texas, of all places, where they're actively trying to write the Constitution and bylaws of this homeowners association such that good Christian folk and Jewish folk won't want to move in. So it's kind of like a passive redlining, racial and religious segregation going on there. And of course, that's unconstitutional, and something's going to happen. Something has to happen. And then there's one, I believe, in Tennessee where they're actually trying to do the same thing. And actually, as far as I understand, the Tennessee court system has come down on them because they were not as smart as the folk out there in Dallas, where they were making it very blatant. But you know, do if you care about your country, if you care about freedom, wherever you are, America or Britain or whatever, check out 2C TV. That's TOUSI.TV. And 2C TV is also on YouTube. Mahyar 2C is the guy that started it, and he's still the main host. He's a Iranian, a Persian, British citizen. He's a Christian. I don't know how close he is to the Lord. I don't know what his walk looks like as far as his that's concerned. But he's a British patriot and a Iranian patriot, and he's done some good journalism on that, and he and the guys working with him are reporting on these kind of issues daily. It's crazy. It's crazy. There are rumors that the King of England has himself converted to Islam, and based on the words that are coming out of his face hole, I can see it. I would believe it, and the United Kingdom is for some trouble if they don't do anything about it. But yeah,